The week Leo was gone. A week had crawled by since Leo vanished. The house felt hollow, haunted by his absence, yet life had continued in a muted, grief-stricken rhythm. But it was the smell, a sickeningly sweet, putrid odor clinging stubbornly to my mattress, that first signaled something deeply wrong. It grew worse each day, becoming an unbearable presence in my room, driven by a desperate, morbid curiosity, a growing unease I couldn't shake. I finally grabbed a pair of scissors and with trembling hands, cut into the thick fabric of the mattress. Inside, the nightmare materialized. Leo's body. His small hands and feet were crudely stitched to the mattress, ticking with thick, dark thread. His mouth was cinched shut by a circle of the same material, pulled taut against his pale skin. The police delivered the most horrifying news. Leo had been alive when they stitched him into the mattress. He had been sewn in alive. The knowledge crushed me, stealing the air from my lungs. For an entire week, I had slept above my brother's corpse, completely oblivious, breathing in the scent of his decay. The police found no conventional evidence, no foreign fingerprints, no DNA, not a trace of anyone else's skin cells on Leo's body. I remember the lead officer's face, Detective Miller, a mask of baffled unease, when he told us Leo seemed to have climbed into the mattress himself and sewn himself inside. It was an impossible, grotesque image. Leo was only 12, pampered, terrified of pain, a child who cried over a scraped knee. But he loved me fiercely. We were close in age, inseparable companions. The morning he vanished, he burst into my room, his face contorted with a raw, primal fear I had never seen. "Anya!" he gasped, grabbing my hand. His skin was icy, slick with a fine layer of cold sweat. He leaned close, whispering words that I kept locked away, even from the police. He said he was going to die. I thought it was typical 12-year-old hyperbole, imagination run wild, fueled by some cartoon or game. But his eyes, they held a terror so profound it silenced my automatic reassurance. "Anya, I'm going to die," he repeated, his voice trembling, barely audible. This time I looked at him, truly looked. I thought maybe school bullies, some online threat, something concrete, inexplicable. He shook his head violently, more cold sweat beading on his forehead. His lips trembled as he spoke, slowly, deliberately, each word heavy with dread. "I found someone's secret in our house. She..." His head snapped around, his eyes fixed on the doorway. His face instantly went bone-white, drained of all color. I followed his gaze. The doorway was empty, nothing there but the usual frame and the sunlit hallway beyond. "I have to hide. She can't find me." With those chilling words he turned and fled, leaving me alone in my room, a cold dread settling in my stomach. From that moment on he was gone. I sat on the new mattress, numb, lost in grief. The old one was gone, removed by the police, but that foul, sweet odor seemed to linger in the air, in my mind, a constant, sickening reminder. I had read somewhere that the smell of death never truly leaves a place, a room where someone has died. Wiping away fresh tears, I forced myself to focus on Leo's last words. Someone's secret. Mother. Clara. Whose secret had he found? Mother Eleanor hadn't been the same since father, Robert, left with another woman years ago, volatile, prone to sudden rages, emotionally unstable. Clara, my older sister, bore the weight of supporting us, shouldering most of the family's financial burden with quiet resilience. It was impossible, unthinkable, that either of them could be involved in Leo's death. Just then Clara entered the room. Her eyes were swollen and red, clearly from crying, her face pale and drawn with exhaustion. "It's not your fault, Anya," she choked out, her voice trembling. She wrapped her arms around me, pulling me into a hug. Her heart hammered against my chest, a frantic rhythm against my ear. Then, her voice barely a whisper, laced with a chilling certainty that sliced through my grief, she spoke words that froze the blood in my veins. "Our brother. He was killed by Mother." I stared at Clara, stunned. Her face was serious, devoid of any trace of a joke, her eyes holding a depth of pain and fear that was terrifyingly real. Taking a deep, ragged breath, the effort visible as a few drops of sweat beaded on her beautiful nose, she asked if I remembered the day father and mother argued and ultimately divorced. I nodded numbly. I remembered that morning clearly. Clara had sent Leo and me to the amusement park, an unusual treat. When we returned, Mother was sitting on the sofa, expressionless, telling us father had left and wouldn't be coming back. Clara's voice trembled as she continued, recounting a horrifying scene that had unfolded after we left. That day, she had known father would confront mother. She had deliberately sent us out, wanting to shield us. She hid in her room upstairs, hearing their shouting from the living room below. Annoyed, not wanting to be involved, she stayed put. The yelling was loud at first, a storm of anger and accusations, but after about 5 minutes, a sudden unnatural silence fell over the house. Clara grew restless, the quiet more unsettling than the noise. She crept out of her room, pushing the door open quietly. The living room was empty. The only sound was a slow rhythmic dripping from the bathroom down the hall. "Mom," she called out tentatively. No answer. She walked towards the bathroom door. It was ajar. Clara leaned down, pressing her face to the narrow gap, peering inside. Here Clara paused again, taking another deep, shuddering breath, visibly struggling to suppress her terror. Her voice was barely a whisper now, laced with a distinct raw tremor. I saw Mother's head completely submerged in the bathtub. On the floor, broken fingernails, several of them, scattered on the wet tiles. The water in the tub was bright red, swirling like a macabre painting. She was lying there, completely still, submerged. She looked dead. Clara's eyes were wide, pleading for me to understand the horror. I was paralyzed with fear. Took me a moment to react. Then I pushed the door open and rushed in. Clara's grip tightened on my hand. But you know what? I saw nothing. Mother's body. It just vanished, dissolved into thin air. Right before my eyes. She squeezed my hand, her grip tight, almost painful. In that moment I thought I was hallucinating, that the stress had broken me. But the very next second, Mother's voice came from behind me. Clara shivered violently. She was dripping. Wet, completely soaked, her hair plastered to her face. I saw her nails were broken just like I'd seen on the floor, but she acted like she didn't feel any pain at all. She asked me in a light, airy voice, completely normal, if I had seen anything strange. In the bathroom. I pretended I hadn't, shaking my head, forcing a blank expression. I had this overwhelming, terrifying feeling. A primal certainty that if I said I had seen what I saw, something terrible would happen to me. Her tone was completely normal, as if nothing had happened, but her eyes. They were staring, glaring at me, Anya. They were cold, dead eyes. Listening to Clara's chilling account, my skin crawled, prickling with goosebumps. According to her, Mother was no longer a living person. But how could that be? She had been living with us, interacting with us, crying over Leo. How could the woman who raised us, who tucked us into bed at night, be a ghost? Clara's hand tightened on mine again, her grip almost painful. Have you heard the stories? She whispered urgently, her eyes wild with fear. They say the dead won't let you discover they're dead. If you do, your own death is near. She squeezed my hand, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper. Do you know why Father killed himself? Because he was terrified. That day he accidentally killed Mother. Imagine. You kill someone you're about to turn yourself in, and suddenly the person you killed is standing there, alive and well, staring at you. How would you feel? He was driven to madness. Leo must have discovered Mother's secret. That she isn't alive. That's why she killed him. When you don't know the secret, she acts normal, she's just Mother. But once you find out, she will stop at nothing to kill you. Clara's body shook uncontrollably, her fear a tangible thing in the room. Suddenly her eyes widened, darting to the edge of the doorway. Mother was standing there, silent, watching us. She must have approached, without making a sound. What are you two sisters talking about? Her voice was soft, but it felt like a sudden icy draft in the room. I felt Clara's hand flinch violently in mine. Mom, Clara said, her voice forced a little too high. We were just saying we shouldn't blame ourselves for Leo's death. It wasn't our fault. Hearing Leo's name, Mother's eyes instantly reddened. Her body swayed slightly, and she had to brace herself against the doorframe. The raw grief on her face seemed genuine. Eleanor, she said, her voice thick with sorrow. Mom has a package downstairs. Could you go get it for me? Clara gave me a quick, worried look. A silent message passed between us, before she finally nodded and left the room, her steps hesitant. Mother then sat beside me on the edge of the bed. Her face was eerily, disturbingly pale, utterly bloodless. Clara's words had instilled a profound fear of her, turning her familiar face into something alien and menacing. I subtly shifted away, putting a little distance between us on the mattress. Mother leaned closer, her eyes wide, her eyelids twitching almost imperceptibly, lending a bizarre, unnatural quality to her gaze. "Anya," she whispered, her voice low and conspiratorial, drawing me into her terrifying narrative. "Your brother was killed by your older sister." I stared at Mother, reeling, my mind struggling to process her words. "Mom, what are you saying?" "Because your brother found your older sister's secret," she repeated, her eyes fixed on mine, intense and unwavering. "So she had to kill him." Mother's narrative chillingly mirrored Clara's, only the perpetrator had changed. "That day," Mother continued, her voice hushed, captivating and horrific, "your father and I were arguing about the divorce. Your older sister suddenly said she wanted to speak with your father alone. I was uneasy, but I thought he wouldn't harm his own daughter no matter how terrible he was. So I left them to talk. After they were alone for a while, I became so upset I went downstairs for a cigarette. When I came back up, your father was gone." Her eyes welled with tears, seemingly genuine grief. "And I saw your sister. She was lying on the floor in her room, covered in blood. A large section of her head caved in. Anya, she looked like she couldn't possibly be alive." Mother's voice broke, her hands twisting in her lap. I was terrified. I immediately called the police. But just as I was dialing your sister's body, Anya, it vanished before my eyes like smoke. Then she walked out of the room. Her face was completely calm, like nothing had happened, but I saw it, Anya. The indentation on her head was still there, sickeningly visible. Mother's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "Your older sister." She just smiled, Anya, and asked me if I'd seen anything strange, why my face was so pale. I was certain, absolutely certain, that if I said I had seen her body, seen what I saw, she would kill me without hesitation. Didn't dare answer. "You and your sisters. You are my heart, pieces of my own flesh and blood. I know my daughters." In that moment I knew. That wasn't your older sister anymore. It was something else wearing her face. Listening to Mother, I was plunged into a terrifying abyss of confusion and doubt. Both my mother and my older sister had told me the other was dead, a malevolent spirit mimicking their loved one. The only person who knew the truth of that day, Father, had committed suicide shortly after. Who could I possibly believe? "Your brother must have discovered your sister's secret, that she's not alive, and that's why he was killed," Mother insisted, her voice trembling with a fear that felt disturbingly real. "A ghost won't let anyone who knows their secret live." "Mom, I got the delivery." Clara appeared at the doorway again, holding a small package, her expression neutral. A flicker of raw terror crossed Mother's face before she quickly masked it, rising casually from the bed. "Mom will go make dinner," she said, her voice a little strained, before leaving the room. As Mother left, Clara rushed to my side, lowering her voice to an urgent whisper, her eyes wide with urgency. "Anya, she didn't say anything else to you, did she? Whatever she told you, don't believe it. She is not our mother anymore. She's pretending." I shook my head, lying again, trapped between their competing horrors. "No, Clara, she didn't say anything." Later that night, I finished showering, wrapped myself in a towel, and was about to get dressed when I heard it again. A strange, unnerving sound. Dripping water. Drip. 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 At first, I thought a faucet in the bathroom wasn't fully turned off. But straining my ears, I realized the sound was coming from outside the bathroom door. And it was moving closer, slowly, rhythmically, like someone soaking wet was dragging themselves towards the bathroom, until it stopped, right outside my door. My heart hammered, a frantic bird trapped in my chest. I remembered Clara's words. "Mother, dripping wet, not alive." My breath hitched. My fingers tightened on the towel. Around me, a long minute passed. The dripping stopped outside the door. Then a trickle of water, dark and viscous-looking in the dim light, seeped under the crack. Trembling, I knelt down, pressing my face to the cold tile floor. I peered under the door. I saw a pair of grayish feet. They were unnaturally rigid. The toes slightly curled, as if standing on tiptoe. Water slowly dripped from the ankles, forming a dark puddle on the floor outside the door. Terror seized me. I scrambled backward, away from the door, my legs weak, my breath coming in ragged gasps. A soft scraping sound from the glass panel high on the bathroom door, like a finger lightly dragging across the misty surface. I lifted my head, my eyes fixed on the glass. The condensation on the glass was slowly being wiped away. A hand, unnervingly still and stiff, was clearing the view from the other side. I stared, mesmerized, dread coiling in my gut. The next moment, Mother's face appeared behind the glass. Her expression was blank, devoid of emotion, her eyes unnervingly wide. Her pupils slowly, impossibly, slid down in their sockets until they rested at the very edge of her lower eyelids, fixing on me without blinking. A raw, piercing scream tore from my throat. "Mom! What are you doing? Why are you staring at me like that?" Mother seemed to snap back to awareness, the bizarre expression vanishing instantly. An apologetic smile, albeit a little forced, appeared on her face. "Oh, Anya. I saw you were in the shower for a while. I just got worried something was wrong." "I'm fine, Mom. I'm not going to do anything foolish," I insisted multiple times, desperate to reassure her, to make the chilling vision disappear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she left. But the moment she was gone, a cold, horrifying realization settled over me. The bathroom door was easily 2 meters high. Mother was only 1 meter 60 centimeters tall. The glass panel was right at the very top of the door. She would have needed to stand on a chair or something tall to reach it. But I had clearly seen her feet were merely on tiptoe, pressed against the floor. Her face couldn't have been there. Unless her body had been unnaturally elongated, stretched. Was this something a living person could do? Had Mother truly died, just as Clara claimed? Just as my mind reeled from this impossible image, my phone rang, jolting me out of my terrified thoughts. It was the police. "Anya," the officer's voice, Detective Miller, was serious, urgent. "We've discovered a crucial piece of information about your brother." There was something in his tone, a quiet authority that cut through my panic, offering a strange sense of reality. "Listen carefully to what I am about to say. It's vital that you remember this." His voice softened slightly. "Whatever you've been holding back, whatever you know, you must tell me everything now. Anya, I am the only one you can trust in this situation." For some inexplicable reason, his words offered a lifeline, a sense of safety. In the swirling chaos, tears streamed down my face. I confessed everything: the notes, the mattress, Clara's story, Mother's story, the terrifying incident in the bathroom, the creeping dread that surrounded me, the impossible images I was seeing. "Anya," Detective Miller's voice was quiet now, but firm. "Remember what I said earlier? Sometimes the dead can also lie." "What do you mean?" I asked frantically, my voice hoarse, my breath catching in my throat. "We performed a full autopsy on your brother's body," he said, his voice solemn. "His internal organs, they were severely atrophied, decayed beyond what is typical. Based on the level of decomposition, the medical examiner has determined that your brother passed away approximately 1 year ago." The world tilted again, spinning violently. I was speechless, rooted to the spot, my mind unable to process the words. Leo, my sweet, clingy little brother who hugged me, who snuck me candy, who awkwardly bought me pads when I had my period, had been dead for an entire year? Who or what had I been living with, grieving for, interacting with this past week? "I don't believe you," I whispered, the words tearing from my throat, weak and disbelieving. "Anya, it's time to face the reality." The officer's voice was gentle but unyielding. "Your brother passed away a year ago." My head swam, a high-pitched whine filling my ears. My spine went rigid. He had to be lying. He had to be. My body shook uncontrollably, cold sweat bathing my skin. "I'm sending you your brother's official death certificate now." A text message arrived. I opened it with trembling fingers. There it was, undeniable documentation. Leo's name. Date of death a year ago. Cause of death: internal organ rupture. In that devastating moment, the words Leo had scratched under his bed, the ones I'd found earlier with Clara, flooded my mind with a chilling new meaning. Someone extra at home wasn't there originally. Found a terrifying secret. He hadn't found someone else's secret. He had found his own secret. He had discovered that he was dead. When you discover a ghost's secret, the ghost will try to kill you. Clara's words, Mother's words, echoed in the terrifying new context. Everything I had seemingly discovered, the notes, the hints of bodies, the secrets, the shifting accusations, wasn't random. It was orchestrated. It was what he, the entity wearing Leo's form, wanted me to find. He was manipulating me. "I know this is incredibly painful, Anya," Detective Miller said, his voice full of compassion. But you have to face it. And now, I need to tell you the truly cruel final truth. Through Detective Miller's narrative, his voice guiding me through the fragmented horrors, I finally remembered the truth, the deeply suppressed reality of the events that transpired a year ago. Our father, Robert, had developed severe violent tendencies and a controlling paranoia. In my 16 years of life, he was the most terrifying man I had ever known. He was obsessively suspicious, convinced Mother Eleanor was cheating even if she just spoke to a deliverman. Each instance led to brutal beatings, leaving Mother bruised and broken, her face swollen, her spirit slowly eroding. When drunk, he turned his violence on us, his children. Mother had repeatedly tried to divorce him, but Robert threatened to kill us if she ever left. To protect us, Mother endured his increasingly deranged control, sacrificing her own safety and sanity. Then, his behavior escalated to something monstrous. He began in drunken stupors late at night, trying to enter Clara's room, even though she was already away at university and only home on breaks. Time and again, Mother, sobbing and bleeding from his blows, shielded Clara, physically blocking him from succeeding. Mother was beaten bloody almost every time. To escape his predation, Clara had moved out permanently as soon as she could, but we had underestimated the depth of his depravity. He wasn't a man anymore. He was an animal, a predator with no mercy, not even for his own daughter. One day, Clara returned home unexpectedly, her clothes torn, tears streaming down her face, her eyes haunted. She immediately locked herself in her room, refusing to eat or speak. First, Mother and I didn't fully understand what had happened, but then Robert came home, similarly disheveled, following close behind her. In that terrifying moment, seeing them both, I finally knew what he had done to Clara. That day, Mother, usually so gentle, erupted into a blinding rage. Like a cornered beast, she attacked Robert, screaming, hitting, scratching, a lifetime of suppressed fury unleashed. But Mother was no match for his brute strength. I watched, frozen in horror, as he struck her face again and again, her mouth bloody, her cries turning to whimpers. Little Leo, only 11 then, trying to be brave, rushed forward to intervene, but Robert kicked him away with brutal force. Leo hit the sharp corner of the coffee table with his head. Blood. It flowed everywhere. A sickening pool spreading on the floor. Leo's blood. The sight burned into my eyes, searing itself into my memory. The pain in my heart was unbearable. A sharp physical agony. I couldn't stand it. I snapped. Grabbing a fruit knife from the kitchen counter, I lunged. I stabbed Robert in the back. He spun around, shock contorting his face. He never expected his meek daughter could turn into a raging animal. Once. Twice. I kept stabbing until Mother, crying hysterically, pulled me back, begging me to stop. Robert collapsed to the floor, his face contorted in rage and surprise, frozen in death. Mom! Go check on Leo. We stumbled to Leo's side, Mother sobbing his name. But it was too late. He wasn't breathing. His eyes were wide, fixed in terror, staring at the ceiling. My Leo. My little brother, my shadow, who hugged me tight, who snuck me candy, who blushingly got me pads when I had my period. He was gone. Forever. In the chaos of that horrific scene, I suddenly remembered Clara. Where was Clara? She hadn't come out of her room. With all the shouting, the violence, the crying, she would never ignore us. A cold dread settled in my stomach, heavier than grief. My loving older sister. How could she hear us, hear Leo, and not come out? A terrible thought formed in my mind. Crying, I pushed open her bedroom door. Clara was lying on her bed, her hand dangling over the side. Blood. A dark crimson stream flowing from her wrist, staining the sheets, forming a sickening pool. On the floor beneath. In that single shattering day, I lost both of them. My sister, my brother. The two people who should have walked alongside me, growing up together, sharing laughter and tears. They were violently, irrevocably gone. Mother's grief was a guttural, broken sound, a low keening that filled the house. I stared at the scene, my mind splintering, unable to comprehend the scale of the devastation. What if none of this was real? How wonderful that would be. What if it was just a terrible dream? Not real. It's not real. We are a happy family. And so, the man in the white coat, Dr. Evans, explained gently, his voice the same kind voice as the police officer on the phone. You created two distinct personalities. Within your mind, Clara and Leo. Your subconscious mind. unable to bear the agonizing reality of losing them both so brutally, desperately wanted them to be alive. He gestured around the sterile, brightly lit lab. Your denial, your desire for them to be real was so powerful. Your brain manifested them. You successfully fractured your psyche, splitting into the sister and brother alternate personalities, and for a long time, you inhabited those roles within the intricate, self-created world you built. He sighed, a sound of weary compassion. We tried numerous therapeutic approaches, standard treatments, even hypnosis, but nothing worked. Your mind was too determined to make this fabricated reality feel real. He turned to Mother, Eleanor, who gripped my hand tightly, her eyes fixed on my face, her own gray streaks visible at her temples. Then our lead professor, after months of consultation, proposed an experimental treatment, one that had never been successfully attempted before. Allowing your mother's conscious mind to enter your inner world and intervene, to act as an external force to help dismantle the fractured personalities. Mother squeezed my hand harder, her own trembling. The success rate for this experimental procedure was terrifyingly low, less than 50%. Dr. Evans continued, his voice solemn. If it failed, your mother's consciousness could become trapped within that world alongside yours, leaving her, physically, alive but essentially unresponsive, in a persistent vegetative state. He looked at Mother, his eyes filled with admiration. We told your mother the worst-case scenario, explained the immense risks, yet she was adamant. She insisted on doing it. She is an incredibly brave, incredibly strong mother, Anya. He continued, detailing the complex, painstaking process of their intervention in my mind. The first priority in dismantling the alternate personalities was Leo's. Your bond with him was the strongest, making that personality the most deeply entrenched, the most resilient. Our initial simulations showed the Leo personality was resistant to simple dissolution and highly vigilant. He sensed our intrusion, your mother's consciousness, our data streams, from the very beginning. He gave a slight professional smile. So we made a bold decision. We needed to flood the Leo personality with specific data that would destabilize it. The first few attempts failed, but in the final intervention we succeeded. We convinced him that he was dead, just as he was convinced someone else in the house was. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping, revealing the core strategy. Since that personality was the most cunning, the most active, in trying to maintain his perceived reality, we decided to leverage that very cunning. We knew the Leo personality deeply yearned to become the core personality, to take over your mind entirely. To do that, he needed to eliminate the intruder, your mother's consciousness. He would use the Clara personality, which he also controlled, to try and get you, the core personality, to kill the intruder. At this point, a beautiful woman in a white coat stepped forward, smiling gently. Hello, Anya, she said, her voice soft, kind, yet with a hint of steel beneath. Do you recognize my voice? My eyes widened. It was Sylvia, father's mistress from my fragmented memories. Yes, Dr. Evans confirmed. Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant psychologist specializing in trauma and dissociation. The most challenging aspect of this entire experiment was maneuvering within your complex subconscious world while simultaneously ensuring that the core personality, you, Anya, didn't become explicitly suspicious of our intervention. We needed a character you would trust enough to listen to, someone who could plant subtle seeds of doubt about the living nature of the personalities you had created. That was Dr. Sharma's role, acting as the police officer in your mind world, and subtly as Sylvia Davies. Dr. Sharma nodded, her smile gentle. Your mind, Anya, is incredibly resilient, incredibly guarded, constantly pushed back against our data inputs. My role as the police officer in your mind world initially struggled to gain your full trust. Dr. Evans took over again. But thanks to your mother's brave presence and subtle assistance within that world, the things she said, the fear she showed, the contradictions, I was able to guide you, apply carefully calculated pressure, reinforce the creeping doubts you were already experiencing. Gradually, I reintroduced the undeniable truth of Leo's death, nudging you, the core personality, to actively resist and reject the alternate personalities. He looked at me, his gaze kind but firm, explaining the fundamental nature of my inner world. They were creations of your own mind, Anya, projections of your love and grief. When you, the core personality from the depths of your being, ceased to trust them, ceased to believe They are real. Cease to believe they exist. They simply cannot exist any longer. Your will, Anya, defines that world. Whatever your will dictates, that world becomes. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Fortunately, the experiment was a resounding success. Dr. Evans' smile broadened, a look of profound relief and scientific triumph on his face. And I was crying, tears streaming down my face, the pain of memory mixing with the overwhelming relief of understanding. Mother Eleanor pulled me into a fierce hug, her body trembling with exhaustion and emotion. My sweet girl, she choked out, her voice thick with tears. We will live well now. We have to. Yes, I whispered back, my voice still weak but filled with a burgeoning strength, a fierce determination. We will live well. For them too. Just then, a shaft of golden sunlight pierced through the lab window, bathing the room in warmth, chasing away the lingering shadows of the mind world. Daylight, Dr. Evans murmured, looking at the light, a symbol of a new beginning. He turned back to me, a genuine, encouraging smile on his face. Anya, he said, his eyes twinkling slightly, after you finish your university entrance exams, would you consider being my student? Your mind? It's remarkable. 2 dragonflies, their wings shimmering with iridescent light, fluttered in through the open window, drawn by the warmth and the scent of fresh air. One landed delicately on my outstretched hand, the other on Mother's. Okay, I whispered, the word a quiet acceptance, a promise of a future I was finally ready to face, step by painful step. The inn.